Hello again, gamers. Welcome back to the Board Game Captain. I'm the Board Game Captain, and today I'm going to be reviewing and talking about the video board game Tharsis for the Nintendo Switch. So Tharsis was published by Cubic and Choice Provisions, and I want to start by giving a big thank you to Cubic and Choice Provisions for this review copy of Tharsis on my Nintendo Switch, as well as for the sample footage to use as illustrations to my talking points for my review here. So let's start off with what is Tharsis. Tharsis is a new video game board game. What I mean by that is it is not a video game version of a pre-existing board game, but rather it is a video game that obviously was inspired by modern board games and was designed with things like dice and random events that happen when you draw cards during board games that very much, but was originally created as a video game, but it very much feels inspired by modern board games. Now, this game should be out at the time of the recording of this video, and on the Nintendo Store, it is regularly priced as $11.99. However, until April 19th of 2020, there is 25% off as a initial launch sale. So it is currently, at the time of the recording of this video, priced at $8.99. And you can actually get a further discount if you have downloaded certain other games on the Nintendo Store. So check that out, see if any of that applies to you, because that is an amazingly good price for this game, for the game of Tharsis. So let's get into it. Let's talk a little bit about this. So first off, what is the theme of Tharsis? Now, as you can see on this picture here, and you're going to be seeing a lot more of the images from Tharsis. I'm going to put up other pics and videos from the game. It's about Mars. It's about a manned mission to Mars that is not just the kind of manned mission we're trying to do now, but there's a little bit of sci-fi in this. We're sending a manned mission to Mars to investigate a strange anomaly that we have detected on the surface of Mars. But on the way to Mars, a meteorite strike happens, which does massive damage to the ship, and you have to hustle to do repairs and keep the ship going to even make it to Mars to not die en route. So that's the general concept. So now the first thing that happens when you first boot up Tharsis and go to play is that you are run through a tutorial. Now the tutorial in future playthroughs is skipped, though you can always optionally go in to play it again. But during the tutorial, it does a pretty good job of teaching you how to play the game. And during the tutorial, you just have two characters that are addressing some issues. And at the end of the tutorial, the meteorite strike happens and both of those characters die. And then you have four other characters, and then you get into the meat of the game. So the game is very interesting. Again, it plays very much like what would have been a solo or co-op board game if it were a board game. And in the game, you are attempting to manage a number of things on the ship while you are on your way to Mars. So you during each turn, new events will happen, and you have a little guide on the top of the screen that tells you how many events are going to be happening and how bad they are. The closer you are to red on those symbols on the little guide, the worse the event is, the more troublesome it will be. And you have to solve these events, or there will be consequences. Each of the events has a consequence that will happen if it is not solved. In order to solve it, you're going to have to move around your crew members to the events and then roll dice, and you can press your luck with the dice. Do a press your luck second dice roll with some of them to attempt to be able to solve these events or activate abilities either from the particular compartment you're in or from the particular crew member you're using, or also stow the dice for research upgrades that you can later use to give you other cool abilities and bonuses. So how does all this work? You take a character, you move into the compartment, you look at what the event is and what are the possible consequences of failing. Often consequences could be things like reducing dice from your various characters, reducing health from your various characters, doing damage to the hull of the ship, which is one of the most dangerous ones, because if the ship runs out of hull, that's it, you're done, the game is over. And what you got to do is you have to roll the dice to try to solve the problem, and solving the problem is specifically just a number that is noted on the top of the screen, and it is the combination of all your dice rolls towards that problem that will eat away at that. Also, a lot of the problems will often have side effects or bad things that can happen if you roll certain dice. Things like stasis, which would stop you from re-rolling it, or hurting the crew member, which actually does a damage to their health. And you really do have to watch the health of each individual crew member, because again, if the crew member runs out of health, they're dead, and then you can't use them anymore. That is another entire character that cannot go around and roll dice for you. So you roll the dice. High numbers are good, because high numbers reduce the number more. Low numbers you're probably going to re-roll if you can. Certain numbers, though, depending on the character, can be put towards their special abilities. There are characters with special abilities that do things like giving a die back to each of the characters in that particular compartment, or healing a point of damage to each of the characters in that compartment. And you're going to want to really strategically decide which characters go first, because those sort of characters are going to want to come into the compartment second or even third, to then boost up the health or dice, etc., of all the characters in that compartment. Also, many of the compartments themselves have abilities that you can use, usually needing a 5 or better, though, to activate them, so you do have to give up one of your good dice to do it, though there are exceptions to that rule. There are some compartments that, instead of needing high dice, require you to use multiple dice of the same number, so if you get 2 1s, those are easy uses for that. Now, a big part of this game is managing your dice. Every time you roll the dice, it reduces the number of dice you have for your next dice roll by 1, and that's tough. And then you also have to manage your health, because if you get 2 wounded and that character runs out of health, they're dead, they're gone, and that's an entire resource towards solving these problems that is gone for the rest of the game. Now, each of your characters gets to take a turn. You solve the problems or you don't, you activate abilities or you don't. You can sometimes commit some of these dice down towards your research abilities, which you can commit 1 die of each facing, so a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, to your research abilities. And then there are abilities that you can trigger to do all sorts of wonderful things, like automatically defeating certain challenges, or giving bonuses of health back to all the characters, or giving extra dice to all the characters, things like this. And they will each cost a different number of the dice down there, and it automatically takes them off from low to high. Now, after you've done all this, after you've activated each character once, you then go to a next time period. The time period moves forward, a bunch of new danger events happen, and you always have a random event that happens that is based on your stress level. The possible events you have to choose from are better if your stress is lower, so that is one of the reasons, in addition to monitoring and managing your number of dice per character, as well as your amount of health, you also really do have to manage your stress, because high stress levels will mean much worse event choices, and that can be very worrisome. You do have to keep an eye on that. There's a lot of things to manage. If you do it all successfully, for the number of required turns, you're going to make it to Mars. And now, another thing that happens between, that I do want to talk about, and this is an interesting thing, is there is food that you get, and mainly the main way you get food is through one of the particular compartment abilities. It's the Hydroponics Garden, which requires multiple dice of the same number to get food. 2 dice of the same number will get you 1 food. A 3rd die of the same number will get you a 2nd food. And a food can be used to replenish 3 dice to 1 character. Now, later on in the mission, you do have the option to turn to cannibalism. And there is an amount of meat already available, human meat, from one of the 2 people who died in the beginning of the game. One of them got blasted off into space and therefore is not available, the other of which is available. And if you choose to use human meat, it will replace 2 dice, but permanently reduce 1 level of your max health, and also it will significantly up your stress factor. So there is a consequence towards using the human meat to get dice back, but it's, especially in the normal difficulty, it's almost impossible to get through it without resorting to cannibalism. You're going to need to resort to cannibalism. Another interesting thing is that if other characters of yours die, you will increase your human meat supply. That will happen. Also, as a fun little graphical effect, anybody who resorts to cannibalism will have their dice turn bloody. They will be bloody all over, and when they roll, they will leave bloody spots on the screen, which I think is incredibly characterful and very funny. in a dark humor sort of way, but I really do dig that. I get a kick out of the fact that they do that. Now, there is nothing in this game graphically that I would say is adult. This really can be played by all people. Conceptually, though, there, of course, again, like I said, is the concept of having to resort to cannibalism, though it's not really an evil cannibalism. It's a necessity. It's like, the people who were stuck in the Andes Mountains, they had to resort to cannibalism. It's necessary. Okay, so now once you've played through it once, you unlock a lot of other methods and options for gameplay. So you get 3 difficulty modes. There's easy, normal, and hard. So easy is a bit of a pushover. I have only lost on easy once. Normal is much more challenging. I would say that normal is where you're normally going to play it. I know it's in the name. I've lost quite a few times on normal due to unlucky dice rolls, but the game plays so quickly. It's such a quick play. I've played this as many as 5 or 6 times in a row in one sitting, which that might be a little bit of spoiler towards where I'm going to be reviewing this game. But yeah, it's real fast. If you lose, you're just like, okay, let me play it again. Let's go. Hard is nightmarishly difficult. It's like the old nightmare mode on Doom. I mean, it's ludicrous. Everything is more challenging in hard mode. So after you've played it for a while on normal, if normal gets too easy for you, then you're probably going to get into hard mode. And but other than that, you may only do it once in a while because I've yet to win it on hard mode. It's quite challenging. One of the really cool things I like about this that really makes you feel like you have something to work towards is they have unlockable characters. So you start with only 4 characters unlocked, and since you use 4 characters at a time, those are your 4 starting characters. But doing certain things throughout the games will unlock more and more characters. At this point, I have unlocked all but one of the characters in the game. The hardest one to unlock, in my opinion, is the cannibal, which requires you to have a certain number of meals of human meat to unlock them, and it's a lot. So that's why I think they're the hardest one to unlock. Everybody else I've unlocked was easier, and it makes it very interesting to try to change around the characters because they all have different abilities. And it becomes very interesting to try to use different combinations of abilities in your characters during the game to see if you do better or worse with different abilities. And I have my favorites, my favorite abilities that I like to use, but I do like to switch them out a lot and try different ones. And I'm really looking forward to unlocking the final character so I can see what ability they have as well, which does make me feel like I have something to work towards. In addition, after playing this game once or twice, you do unlock these special challenge scenarios, which are specific scenarios with specific challenges that you have to figure out how to beat, and they can be quite tough, but it does give you a lot more variety because these are different from the normal basic game of just, we got a bunch of people on the ship, there's an asteroid strike, and now you have to try to keep the ship going and make it to Mars. In this case, you have other scenarios, like there's one where a single person wakes up on the ship and mysteriously everybody else is gone, and they again have to survive a certain amount of time. So I do like that they've added these in. It gives a lot more variety to your gameplay, a lot more options for you to play, a lot of different ways to play, and also a lot of things to work towards and try to achieve, which can be quite addictive. Okay, so the next thing I want to talk about is the graphics of this game. So now this is kind of a bargain title, obviously, being that at release it's available for $8.99, and even normally without a discount, it's going to be available for $11.99, which is incredibly affordable. So I mean, I wasn't expecting anything crazy in regard to the graphics of this game. They're passable. They're fine. I don't have any problem with them, especially for the price. I think the best part of the graphics, in my opinion, is the dice themselves. The physics engine for the rolling of the dice looks great, and I love the bloody dice. Those are really awesome. The characters are pretty basic. The look of the ship in space, it's definitely functional. It looks cool. You can tell the difference between the different rooms. I do like the graphics inside the rooms to see what's going on there, but it is like I said, it's fairly basic. But again, you're not going to expect super cutting edge graphics for a $12 game, or at launch a $9 game. It's going to be it's what you would expect for the price. So I would say the graphics are good, but nothing mind-blowing. In regard to the soundtrack, I've got a little bit more to be positive about. I'm going to start throwing up some bits of the soundtrack here to give you an idea of what I'm talking about. The soundtrack is thumping. All right, they use an electronic soundtrack, which at times gives you a feeling of urgency, and at other times gives you a feeling of things going wrong. There are tracks where they use some like warping of the sound to make you suddenly feel like you know, things are getting bad, things are getting desperate. And now, the soundtrack doesn't always feel so super thematic. Sometimes it does. Other times it feels a little too upbeat for the kind of situation that you're in this space Donner party that you have found yourself involved in. But that being said, it is always good. I actually quite like the soundtrack on this, and have found myself bobbing my head along to it while I'm playing the game. So whereas I was a little more lukewarm on the graphics, I'm a big thumbs up on the soundtrack. I think the soundtrack is awesome. I really, really enjoy it. Okay, final review time. So now this review is going to be for the version of Tharsis on the Switch specifically. I do know there was an older version of this. This is the updated version, but there was an older version on PC, and it is available on multiple platforms now. To a lesser extent, this review can apply to those other versions, but just in case there are any differences, this is specifically the version for my Nintendo Switch, or your Nintendo Switch, I guess. Now, okay, this game is very much a video game for fans of board games. The dice engine is awesome. The rolling of the dice is incredibly satisfying. The press your luck dice elements do feel like a lot of modern co-op board games. The trying to solve the different problems, the random events, which feel like card draws. Everything in this game screams to me that it feels like I'm playing a board game. But it feels to me a lot better to play a solo board game in an electronic version than playing it on the tabletop. I've never been a really big fan of solo board games on the tabletop, because it's like, okay, now what do I do? Okay, I gotta draw a card, I gotta reset the dice, I gotta do this, I gotta do that, and then there's too much tedium in there between you're actually taking the turns. Whereas, in an electronic version, it takes care of all that for you. It's really lickety split. You're done. Boom! It resets everything for you, which makes it much more handy. So yes, I think this very much fills a niche of being able to play a solo board game on an electronic device and have it really give you the same sort of feeling that a board game does give you. The game itself, the storyline is basic but cool. I'm not going to ruin the ending. The ending is interesting. Again, it's a fairly basic storyline. Don't expect this to be a great work of literature, but the storyline is fun. It is interesting. The first couple times I played it, I was really watching it. I really enjoyed the end, though after that I did start skipping the storyline and just play it for the gameplay, because the gameplay is where I do feel this game really shines. I really enjoy the gameplay, and I find it incredibly addicting, especially, and I'm probably going to continue finding it addicting until I've unlocked everything, which at this point I've yet to play all of the challenge scenarios, and I still have one character I haven't unlocked. Once I do that, the replayability might drop significantly. I really do predict that it will, but I will have played this game dozens and dozens of times by the time that happens. I've already played this game dozens of times, and like I said earlier, I've played this game as many as 5 or 6 full games in a row. And then I'll get a renewed interest in continuing to play when I unlock a new character. Like, I may have just played this game 4 times, but then I unlock a new character and I'm like, well, now I gotta play it again because I have to play it with the new character. That just has to happen. Okay, so I just checked because I was curious, and I've spent more than 15 hours playing this game. A game that takes usually probably like half an hour, I think, to just play through fully, even if you do it successfully, if you don't lose. So this, I mean, I've been spending a lot of time playing this game. This game is absolutely tons of fun. Came to give your opinion on the game? Yeah? He liked it. It's a good game. So there you have it. I'm going to give Tharsis 8 out of 10 stars. This is an amazingly addicting video game of a board game. I really enjoy it. I'm going to keep playing this game. I I could even see myself if they ever did a physical version of this, at least trying it. Though I do have to say, I think it's best in this electronic format. And if you are a board gamer who also likes to play board game versions of video games, I would highly recommend Tharsis. It's a really cool game. It's very enjoyable, and it's crazy addicting. And I love that they give you things to work towards, things to unlock. So there you have it. If you have any comments, questions, or concerns, either on this video or on the game Tharsis, feel free to put them in the comments down below. And if you enjoyed this review and you'd like to see more like it, and if you'd like to see me do more content on video games in general on the channel, give this video a like, share it on all forms of social media, and if you haven't already, please subscribe to the Board Game Captain. It's Captain spelled with K on YouTube. And if you're in a position where you can help out the channel, you can join my Patreon. There's links in the description down below. Or if you'd like to buy some merch, cool gamer gear from our merch shop over on Teespring. Also, there will be links down below and at the end of this video. And until next time, game on.